Hello and welcome to NBL Heat Check, where we're casting an eye across the hoops globe to see what everything means in the lead up to NBL 25. We know when it'll start in Perth at Hoops Fest on September 19, and so now we just get to see how it all builds into the start of the season. Joel Peterson with you alongside the co-founder of Airtime Scouting, Michael Houben. Mick, there's heaps to get through.
Yeah, a lot of big signings in the last couple of weeks. Some imports, a big next star to come as well. We'll cover all those today.
Absolutely. So keep an eye out for all of that. I'm going to bring some more foreign commentary to the table as well, which is my little pet project over the course of our Heat Check shows. Let's start though in the NBL 1 because it's been heritage round of recent times. A couple of the teams have really embraced it. We saw the bodysuits in the women's competition. And for the Melbourne Tigers, some really famous names getting out there and being part of it as well. You know, Gaze, Purchase, Giddy, some really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, fantastic to see so many clubs get around Heritage Round, but no one can do it better than the Melbourne Tigers. Obviously, so much history on display, and we got to see multiple generations of Australian basketball legends for the Melbourne Tigers this weekend. You had Josh supporting his sister Hannah Giddy. You had Andrew coaching Mason Gaze. It was fantastic to see them all in the one room.
Yeah, of course. The Bradkeys as well have been a part of that celebration, so really cool stuff and great to see across the NBL 1 competition. We always say it in our cities, in our regional centres as well, that competition being really well embraced. We spoke about Michael Harris last episode, the mustachioed man from out west. Well, he had a massive dunk over the last little while. It was an absolute monster.
Yeah, he wanted to give us another reason to talk about him again this episode, and I didn't know he had this in his bag. I don't think the defender did either. Yeah, he, in retrospect, made a really terrible business decision. Came over, probably thought he was contesting a layup, and instead Michael caught a body on his way to the hoop, and we got one of the best NBL highlights of the season.
I don't know, the mustachioed masher. We might need a name for Michael Harris with the way that kind of. I agree with you. I didn't know he had that in the bag, but that's a nice highlight. I reckon. Wildcats fans would have liked seeing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was a big one. And as we said, he's poised for a really big season coming up.
We spoke about the BAL League in Africa last time as well. Jolo Alachuls had a great season over there, a dominant season, so dominant that he's won the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're the leading scorer in a competition and you're the best defensive player in a competition, it probably bodes well for your MVP chances, so it was fantastic to see. And he's only the second ever African player to actually win the award. So fantastic to see Big Joe getting a big achievement.
It can't be possible to win the Defensive Player of the Year lead scoring and not be the MVP, can it?
Absolutely.
I don't know how, unless someone averages 17 assists a game, I'm not really sure where the gap would lie, but well done to JLA, and we touched on it last time that the BAL League is going ahead. And I said that I'd bring some commentary to the table. We had Milton Doyle over in Puerto Rico last time. I spotted this in the Euro League over the last little while. So this is a team, Aris, who, so the semi-final series, one apiece. They are down 2 with 4.7 seconds left, and this happens.
Τα 4,7 για τη λήξη. Αστοχή, η μπάλα στα χέρια του Άρη. Το Λιόπουλος πετάει. Μέσα, buzzer beater. Ο Άρης είναι στην τετράδα. Ο Άρης πήρε το τελικό. Τρομερό τέλος. Απίστευτο καλάθι. Ο Τολιόπουλος έγραψε την ιστορία απόψε εδώ στην Πάτρα με 87-88. Μπορεί να έχασε τη δεύτερη βολή, αλλά έβαλε ένα μοναδικό καλάθι ανεπανάληπτο. Ο Άρης βγάζει εκτός τον Προμηθέα.
I mean, Mick, we've seen some wild sequences to end games, right? But the missed free throw, down 2, to a kick-out 3 to win a series is pretty incredible.
Yeah, this is uncanny. Probably one of the more improbable game winners I've seen. And the craziest thing about this, they're down 2. Some might argue you'd intentionally miss that second free throw. It looks like he tried to make it. So the fact that he happened to get his own rebound, backtrack to the three-point line and still turn around and make the shot is incredible.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. So that's my task every fortnight. Every time we gather on this show, I'm going to bring you something from across the basketball world that tickles me in the way of commentary. That's a bit of a did you see that? There's been some big news since last time we came together though, so we'll get stuck into that next. Some big news landing at the time of the recording this morning. We've got a next star signing in Tassie, the man that we've spoken about here on NBL Heat Check a couple of times, Roman Sialipa, the Queenslander. He's as athletic as the day is long. He's got hops for weeks, not just for days, and he's signed with the Jack Jumpers as the next star.
Yeah, I've had so many people ask me for the last few weeks, will we see Roman in the NBL? Will he be a next star? Well, we have our answer. He's going to be a Tassie Jack jumper. And I think that anticipation around his signing really speaks to his ability. He's a guy that's going to be a fan favourite. Tassie fans are going to be pleading for him to get minutes this season. And as you said, he's a high flyer, a spectacular player, plays with passion and energy. And I'm really excited to see what he can do next season.
Yeah, they kind of tipped their hand in the last little while, the Jack Jumpers, that this was on the radar. So it's not the biggest surprise, but it is good news. What do you like about his game? What traits does he bring to the table you see that you like?
Yeah, look, I said he was polarising last time, and I stand by that. His strengths are incredible, and his weaknesses are very clear as well right now. He's someone who, as you said, amazing athlete, NBA athlete, plays above the rim. He gets downhill and plays with an amazing motor. Conversely, he needs to improve his shooting. He's a subpar three-point shooter, struggles at the line sometimes, and he doesn't quite have the left hand yet. But I think, looking at that positively, he's now in a fantastic situation with Tasmania. This is a team that's coming off the back of an NBL championship, and he gets to learn under those guys. He's committed to the sport, he's committed to the Next Star program, and this is his chance to really take a leap in his game, build on those weaknesses, and become an all-around stud.
So what's the role? How does he fit with this Tassie team? We know that Scott Roth places a high value on defence and has done for a long time. He certainly brings some athletic traits to the table that might help on that end. How do you see this when we get to the nitty-gritty of the NBL season? How do you see him fitting within this Tassie lineup?
Yeah, it's hard to peg his foreseeable role right now because he's risen so quickly. If you asked me a few months ago, I would have said he probably isn't a next star or NBA prospect level guy, but every single week in NBL 1, he seems to be winning me over. He had 37 points as a 17-year-old the other weekend. And if we look at Tasmania's roster, they are pretty stacked on the 3 and 4 positions. That's where I'd see him playing. But there is some room for him, and you think about the way he plays. He comes out with 110% energy. I think this season we're going to see him, maybe get 5 or 10 minutes a game and come in with full tenacity and try and take over the game with his motor.
Staying on the Jack Jumpers, you and I look at things in very different ways. You look at the sensible, analytical side of things. I just look for stuff that excites me. And this man's name excites me. Craig Sword for the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. As soon as I saw this news come out, I thought that is a guy that I'm looking forward to call in NBL 25. And he, again, brings a bit of excitement down there to the Apple Isle. Yeah,
great name, great player, and I really like this fit for Tassie. It's a really interesting thing. He's a player that hasn't averaged double digits across his 6 years in the G League. That's not his game, but his reputation is as of one of the best defensive players across the entire G League. He's someone who racks up the stocks, that's steals and blocks for those playing at home. Think of Matisse Thybulle, the way that he gets deflections in the passing lanes and blocks players on the perimeter. He's that sort of player, and despite being 6'3", he plays much bigger than his size. He has the length and athleticism to defend multiple spots. I think it's a new skill set that we haven't really seen on Tassie's roster, and it's going to make them even more formidable next season.
And I guess the interesting part about it is now that with their 3 imports in Doyle, Crawford and Sword, they're all wings, guards. They haven't gone big with their imports this season. Do you like that? I mean, is that a good thing in your mind, how they've constructed this roster from an import perspective?
Yeah, well, since Tassie's inception, they've traditionally gone with 2 perimeter players and then 1 forward or big with their import spots. And this feels very perimeter slanted, right, having 3 perimeter players. But if we have a look at Tasmania's roster, they now have Will Magnay playing the best basketball of his career, presumably back next season at the 5. They've got Fabian Krislovic backing him up. He's having a fantastic season in NBL 1 North as well, or Central, I should say. And they also have Gorjok Gak as a little bit of insurance there at the spot as well, bringing a bit more length and size. That's the 5 spot. You can then redistribute that Marcus Lee role into the perimeter. I think if you had to nitpick and find a way to improve this Tassie roster, I'd say it's on the wing. And again, he brings a skill set that I haven't really seen on this Tassie team up to this point. I think one of the things I like about this fit is that he can defend opposition players' best perimeter players. And that frees guys like Jordan Crawford and Milton Doyle up to focus their energies on the offensive end. And also, we know sometimes Jordan Crawford isn't getting it going offensively or is being targeted defensively. What they can then do is get Milton Doyle to be the lead guard and have Sword and another wing closing out the lineup. So Sword brings his own shield to the table for Tassie, which is really handy for Scott Roth. He's going to be a piece to watch. Another signing since we last spoke was Rob Edwards up at Cairns. So they continue to build this roster. Adam Ford is putting the pieces together. What caught your eye when you saw this? Yeah, another import guard that has played predominantly in the G League. He's had a little stint in Germany, but he's a lot more of an offensive-oriented player. He's a guy that can really heat up on the offensive end. He's a high-volume three-point shooter. He shot only 31% from three, but let's put a bit of context to this. He's kind of like a Tyler Harvey or a Milton Doyle. The percentages don't stand out, but they take and make tough shots, and when they're on a heater, they can take over games. The other thing I really like about him, and Adam Ford touched on this, he is a tenacious on-ball defender. He'll pick up 94 feet. He'll make opposition guards' lives a living hell. And I think if you think about the fit with Taran Armstrong, he's a bit more scoring-oriented compared to Taran's pass-first nature. And they'll be able to interchange with the guys they defend in the backcourt as well.
We'll talk about Taran Armstrong in a second because he's a continuing conversation piece that's evolving. In terms of Edwards and this Cairns roster, though, is he the missing piece? Where does he fit for you? How does he slide into this system for Adam Ford?
Yeah, look, I like him as a player, but I'm a little bit worried. We know the Taipans historically have won with either a fantastic import trio, I think of Scott Machado, DJ Newell, Cam Oliver that year, or they have fantastic locals, Bull Qual and Keanu Pinder. Well, they've lost Qual, they lost Pinder, they've lost their import talent. They're going to have to make up the numbers in a big way. And while I think Edwards is a piece, I don't know if he's that all-NBL first or second team piece to really get them over the line. He's never been a 15-pointer above scorer across his professional career. And while he definitely looks the part as an offensive player, it's really asking a lot of him. I really like Ford's ability to coach up his teams, and they're always greater than the sum of their parts. But really, we're going to need to nail it with this final import spot, at least on paper, for them to be competitive.
So a couple of question marks for the Taipans, but Rob Edwards, he gets into the mix and he'll give them some offensive spark. There's no doubt about that. So that's a little bit of the news. Next, we'll jump overseas. So as we head overseas, let's stay with the Cairns Taipans, and we mentioned Taran Armstrong. The conversation continues to evolve around him. His game seems like it continues to evolve, and there is some rising stock. If you're in the Taran Armstrong share market early, you'd be looking at your dividends right now going, this is looking pretty tasty. He's been at a camp recently and done some great things. What are you seeing at the moment, not only in terms of his game, but in terms of the likelihood of where his future might be going?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago he went to the NBA Combine, obviously helped his stock during that process. Now he's gone to the Adidas Euro Camp. It is one of the biggest international pre-draft events, and he's taken home all first team honours. So he continues to surge. NBA teams are monitoring him closely, and he's playing his way into a potential two-way contract. That's got to be a bit scary for Cairns, but obviously fantastic for Taran.
He was in that team alongside my man Darren Peterson as well, who I know nothing about, but I know that he's named Darren Peterson and I was a fan of his work. So if we think about where Taran Armstrong is positioned now in terms of NBA future, this Cairns Taipans roster, I mean, it seems pretty finely poised. Where have you got it in terms of likelihood as to whether he is NBA bound or he returns to far north Queensland?
Right now, I feel like it's right on the tipping point. It could go either way, and it's really hard to tell. All it takes is one team to fall in love with him. You know, I think right now, look, he's got his pros and cons. He still needs to improve as a scorer. He was actually scoreless in his last Eurocamp game. But if a team loves his passing and his size and think they can develop that scoring ability, they'll be able to see a future NBA player in Taran, and that's going to throw Cairns' import recruitment into shambles. They're going to have to go for an import point guard. And again, like I'm already flagging the Taipans' recruitment. Losing Taran is going to really throw an extra spanner into the works.
Well, Adam Ford has to sort of work all of this out. He spoke with Pete Hooley on the huddle recently. Let's take a listen to that.
I look at it as a win-win. You know, if Taran gets his call-up, it's a win-win for everybody because, you know, there'll be two guys that we've had last season that will get their NBA debut the following year because we're assuming Bobby's going to do well in the draft and as well if Taran gets his call-up. So it's a great form for recruiting. It's just puts more emphasis on what we're trying to do with the development side of things here. And obviously it's a great opportunity for Taran. If he doesn't get his call-up, it's a win-win for us. Selfishly, it's a win for me because I've got such a high caliber local player running the team. And it'll be really important that with him being back here, we've invested in him by putting the right pieces around him. You know, we've already started doing that with some of the signings that we've made. So it's important that, you know, we don't want to get caught with our pants down. So, you know, a lot of the key acquisitions that we've made, is with the plan in place that we can be ready to go with whichever direction we go with.
So some other news that's hot off the press is that Tyler Harvey from the Illawarra Hawks, we know him as a sharp shooter. We know that he's got a quick release. He's so quick, in fact, that he signed and played in Puerto Rico within about 12 hours. So he's getting some off-season reps as well.
Yeah, add him to the NBL guys that heading over to Puerto Rico. It seems like a really complimentary league for the NBL at this point, and this is a really fun team. He's joining a situation where they just cycle through NBA talent. They've had guys like Kenneth Fareed, Will Barden play. At the moment, he's paired up with Jared Sullinger. That's a really fun combination. Yes. Now, they're 5th on the ladder out of 12. There's going to be some really important games for this team coming up, and I'm sure Tyler's going to be a big piece of that.
I must admit, I haven't thought about Jared Sullinger in quite a while, and when I saw his name pop up, I thought, yeah, that's a nice fit for Tyler Harvey. So he's obviously getting some reps at the moment, which is great for him. In terms of other teams that are building, we've got the Brisbane Bullets. A big talking point around their off-season's been Deng Adel. He's playing in the French League at the moment. What are you seeing in the way that he's playing? Because it seems like they've got a bit invested in this signing panning out, the Bullets. Do you have a steer on whether it's going in the right direction for them or whether you can see things working out in that way?
Yeah, I would say this is an enigma. Deng is an enigma. We saw him come into the league last time with Illawarra with a lot of expectations. He was a marquee signing. We thought he'd be a face of the league. We know that didn't pan out fantastically, and he's been globetrotting a bit since. He's been in Denmark, Bulgaria, Canada. He's now in the French Pro B. It's a second division league, but it is one of the best second division leagues in the world, a very athletic league. And look, you watch his highlights, you can see his potential. I'm not saying this current production necessarily translates to a surefire NBL role, but we know his potential. This is a guy that started NBA games. He had a storied career at Louisville. And look, on paper, it's all there for him. It's great to see him back in Australia, obviously coming in with far less expectations this time, but a lot of upside still there. Hopefully he can develop and find a role on this Bullets team.
Where do you think he can kind of peg that role? Like if you're looking for him to do maybe one or two things more consistently, better, whatever it might be, what would you want to see from him if you're Justin Schuller to make him a big part of your rotation?
Yeah, look, Schuller's spoken about getting a lot of athleticism on the wing, and Deng certainly provides that. He plays above the rim. He's a spectacular player in that sense. Now, being able to make shots, that is his bread and butter, and we need him to do that at a high rate. I remember last time he came in, he spoke about wanting to impress on the defensive end as well, and I think that's a player who has a lot of tools to impact on that end, and if he's able to lock in and provide value on that end, then he's going to be a really well-rounded talent.
We've learned a little bit about Latvian basketball in the last little while. Jordan Hunter's been over there, of course, having signed with the South East Melbourne Phoenix. He's been playing with Riga Sally. Unfortunately, though, his campaign in that bright pink jersey is over.
Yeah, look, it's been fun while it lasted. I've enjoyed following Riga Sally in the Latvian league. I've enjoyed the hot pink uniforms. They're fantastic. I've been intrigued by your obsession of cured fish as well.
How can you not love it? How can you not love it?
But look, things come to an end. They lost 1-4 in the series, and he wasn't able to come home with the major accolade, but he did come home with an all-first team award, or an All-Star 5 award rather, and that's some nice credit for his play over there.
Yep, so Geordie Hunter, hopefully, the South East Melbourne Phoenix are hoping that and expecting that he's going to be suiting up in their colours for NBL 25. Hyunjung Lee has been playing in Japan. Now, this is the Japanese B1 League, which, correct, is the Japanese A1 League. Don't be fooled by the name, unlike the French League. This is the top league in Japan, and his strong shooting continues as you'd expect. Yeah, look, we've touched on it, and he's finished the season really strong. I'm going to cherry pick a stat here right now. He has scored more points per game than Vic Law, Jarrell Brantley, and Xavier Cooks. Now, take that for what you will, but he's a fantastic scorer, and I think, look, with Gary Clark maybe returning, maybe not returning, there's going to be some shots that are going to have to be redistributed, and I think he should be a beneficiary. He was one who had a really good postseason last year as well, and probably showed he could do a little bit more than just shoot it. Like defensively, he was important. He made some big offensive rebound plays in their run down the line. So a bit of energy, but he's such a weapon for Justin Tatum to be able to roll out there because he is a huge threat with the ball in his hands. Yeah, look, run him off screens, get him shots. When he's on the court, he needs to be able to find shots within the offense, and if he can hold his own defensively, there's a lot to love. NBA drafts coming up, of course. There's been a couple of players with local connections that have had big rises, none more so than this man. I mean, AJ Johnson, 36 on the latest ESPN mock draft. This has been a meteoric rise in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, look, this goes to show how the NBL transitions players and gets them prepared for their NBA futures. This is also an example of how NBA teams value projection and potential over production. Now, AJ's a guy, we didn't see a lot of him in the NBL this past season, but when we did, you could see as a kid in a kid's body, and I think that maybe impacted his production. But we saw glimpses. Sometimes he'd come out and have some of the best dunks of the season or make really tough shots, and you could see the player that he could become. Now, we're at the time of year where teams get to see him in person. They see him at the combine. He's now a little older, a little bit stronger, a lot wiser with a year of professional play under his belt. And I think they're really getting to be enamoured by all those tools on paper.
It's an interesting balance because NBL teams have generally got these guys for 1-2 years as a next star or as a young player coming through. NBA teams know that if things pan out, they're hopefully going to have them for 15. So they're willing to invest the time a little bit more to develop them, which is, do you think that's why we see, I guess, a bit of a disconnect with the minutes guys like AJ play at the NBL level, but then what NBA teams project that they're going to be able to do?
Yeah, look, no one's going to say that AJ was one of the most productive next stars that we've ever had, but we might look back in 5-10 years and say that he might have had one of the better careers out of guys that have come through the league. And again, that comes down to those tools. He's super athletic. He's really bouncy. He can shoot the three at a high rate, a lot of size at the guard position. When those things that naturally come with age and game experience come, all that's going to come together for him. And I think a few NBA teams are really excited by that.
One prospect that we haven't seen here in the NBL, but is really lighting up draft boards at the moment, is Johnny Furphy. Of course, he's been at the University of Kansas, Melbourne product. He's come through the Australian basketball system. He's now in the draft pool for good, and he's looking at maybe being sort of just outside the lottery.
Absolutely. Look, this is the rule of thumb when it comes to the NBA draft. If you're a projected first-round pick, you stay in the draft because that is where the guaranteed deals are, and that's when you know that a team is invested in your future. That's where Johnny is mocked right now. That's why he's staying in the draft. And looking back, what a massive 12 months he's had. He had no NBA fanfare this time last year. He had no college fanfare this time last year. All it takes is one event. He went to the NBA Academy Games, blew up. Every college team was after him, ended up at a powerhouse Kansas team. He came in as a freshman, he slowly built his role up, impressed people, ended up as a starter as a freshman, and all of a sudden look where he is now.
He just got better and better as that season went on with Kansas. So a couple of Australian connections into the draft. They've also, the latest ESPN mock draft had Bobby Clintman, sort of late first round, Ariel Hukporti in the second round. So, and of course, Alex Sarr's going to be in there as well. He's going to be right at the top of things, which is so exciting. So there's a lot more NBA draft stuff to come, and we'll definitely cover that more in our next show as we head towards Summer League. The draft process continues. We'll really get stuck into where this might pan out for these players and hopefully have a little bit more intel on that. On young players, though, we talked about Brisbane earlier in the way that they're building their roster. They've signed a new DP as well to help build out their roster. Josh Coonan comes into their program. What do you see from him? Yeah,
another example of Justin Schuller going over guys that he has had a relationship with for quite a while, and now he's a NBL head coach. He can start poaching them and getting them to the Bullets. Josh Coonan had a lot of pedigree coming out of the youth system here in Australia. He's a guy that is super versatile, can defend inside and out, is impactful on the boards and can shoot, roll to the rim, a lot to like. He's been to a big program in San Francisco, had a pretty solid career over 5 seasons, but the biggest thing that hampered him was injuries. This is the biggest thing. How can he move and play the way that he could previously? That's the biggest question mark, because his athletic profile is a big part to his allure. Now, as a DP, a fantastic chance to take, and we'll see what comes of him.
It's an upside swing. Sometimes you've got to swing for the fences and hope that you're able to clear them, and that's what the Brisbane Bullets are doing with the signing of Josh Coonan. So that's all that's happening abroad. There's heaps happening closer to home, including in the NZNBL. Let's swing across the ditch to the NZNBL, where there's always a lot happening, and this competition continues to go from strength to strength. Isaiah Liafa was one of the marquee signings for the Sydney Kings. We've seen him in New Zealand Breakers colours the last couple of seasons. His campaign with Wellington in the nation's capital over there in NZ is really starting to heat up.
Yeah, the Kings have added a lot of depth pieces, and we've spoken about the new guys, Tyler Robertson, Kelly Lepepe, but I think this has gone under the radar. You know, Isaiah Liafa is a guy who's a pest defensively, he's a confident shot maker offensively, and that's what we're seeing right now. He's had some big games, had 35, 6 and 9 recently. That's a massive performance. And what I really love about him is his ability to knock down shots. He's shooting the 3 at a really high clip. I think Brian Goorjian's really going to love having him at his disposal.
I reckon Brian Goorjian will be pretty excited with what he sees there, especially if he can add that 3 ball to what we know he brings defensively. Just seems like a Brian Goorjian type of player.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, he's a utility guard. You can play him on the ball, you can play him off the ball. They're obviously going with lots of ball handlers, so I think he fits really well into the system.
Flynn Cameron's been a player that's caught the eye of many across, well, the last couple of years, really, but particularly with Melbourne United last season. He caught my eye because he is the best warmer-upper in the competition. He goes at it pre-game like no one you've ever seen. He's got a sweat half an hour before a game, and he's warming up into the NBL 25 season nicely as well.
Yeah, these are the guys that I love to follow in the off-season. A guy who could be an NBL impact player right now, but at Melbourne United didn't have the opportunity to really play too much. But of course, in this setting, we get to see heaps of him, and he's doing really well with Taranaki. I like his size for the guard position. He can defend both guard positions. He's an impactful rebounder. He can make plays on the ball, but can also shoot at a high rate off the ball, obviously playing alongside Mitch McCarron at the point guard spot right now. Now, this time last year, if he signed with a team that needed guard minutes, I think he'd already be an impactful rotation player. So we'll see if he gets more opportunity next season.
So, of course, playing with Taranaki. And again, just an example of the different things that we look for. You look for the things that are completely sensible, and I look for the things that matter to no one else but me. But that's okay. Ty Webster was playing with the Otago Nuggets, of course, coming off a season with the Perth Wildcats. He'd been putting up pretty strong numbers as well, as we know. He can absolutely get buckets. And his season's come to an end. He's headed to America for the birth of his first child.
Yeah, really exciting. Congratulations to Ty. And it was great to see him in the New Zealand League while we had him. You know, we know this is a guy, if you put the ball in his hands, he's going to do great things. He has boundless energy. He's always playing and looking to go get a bucket. And I think this is a really interesting player to watch this off-season, because I think the most intriguing thing the Wildcats did was pick up Ty's option. They could have clearly gone in a different direction with that point guard spot. They clearly have a lot of faith in Ty running it back. And he's a guy who is obviously going to have to defer to Bryce a lot, as you have to do on the Perth Wildcats. But he'll also be asked to go and get his own a little bit more, and that's what I'm excited to see.
Well, he is a hype man. He's an energy man, as you say. I mean, when he becomes a father, the joint's going to absolutely explode. The birthing suite will be a party. So congratulations to Ty Webster and the Websters, and we look forward to seeing a young Ty with plenty of energy running around in the next little while. That's the NZ side of things. We'll cover off on the NBL one next. So let's head to our own backyard now in the NBL one. Plenty of great performances across the line. Nick Marshall's one that I think a lot of people that have watched the Adelaide 36ers over the last couple of years might have wanted to play a little bit more. He goes back to Mount Gambier, the mighty Pioneers, in the NBL one South every year, and just puts up numbers, and has been doing so for a number of seasons. This is no different.
Yeah, I think NBL fans have been checking their clocks, their watches every single season, waiting for the breakout. When's it going to happen? I think this is the year that he's finally going to get his opportunity, having a look at Adelaide's roster. And boy, does he seem primed to take advantage of it. These are fantastic numbers all across the board. He's shooting about 55% from the field as well. Shows how effortlessly he's doing it. So he's primed to take advantage of that.
Just on Mount Gambier too. Shout out to the Mount Gambier Pioneers. Fantastic club, really rich history. They've been a powerhouse for a long time. South Australian team playing in the NBL 1 South. They've got big rivalries with the likes of Ballarat and Bendigo, some of those regional clubs. And they do it really well. I mean, they've produced a lot of talent, and their ability to get guys like this playing for them is really significant.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick has had fantastic success there. Michael Harris was there doing great things a couple of seasons ago as well. So they're a really great program.
And really great for that community, and as many of our NBL 1 clubs are. Angus Glover's one who didn't have a great NBL 24 in terms of shooting the ball. We know what he can provide. Change of scenery heading into NBL 25. He's been back with Eltham in the NBL 1 South this season, and his shooting's really started to pick up, which I think would please him no ends.
Yeah, look, a bit of a down year last season, but I think we've seen enough of Angus to know that he's a quality shooter. He's back to his best at the moment, just under 40% from three. He's leading Eltham in scoring right now, bringing his energy as he always does. And I'm really excited about this fit with South East Melbourne. They've got a lot of young, exciting pieces. Obviously, we know Derek Walton is coming in, Nathan Sobey, Geordie Hunter. but I'm excited for Glover the most because he's going to get a much bigger role than he was in Sydney. I think he's absolutely ready for it and primed, and this sort of form indicates that he's raring to go.
And he was on the huddle a couple of weeks ago with Pete Hull. There's a really great episode. So if you're after a podcast to fill half an hour and really learn something about a fantastic young man, then make sure you jump on that. AK Gak's got plenty of upside. We talked about Gorjok heading to Tasmania a little bit earlier in the way that their roster's building out. I think Cairns would like what they're seeing from him in the NBL 1 at the moment.
Yeah, talk about upside. I remember when he initially signed in the NBL with Illawarra. Brian Gorgon was the coach, and he said this guy is an NBA prospect. Now, obviously he's got a ways to go right now in terms of building his NBL resume, but on paper, he's got all the tools. I think this guy is one of the most athletic players in the entire NBL. You talk about watching guys in layup lines. This guy just throws down the most amazing dunks. And he fits the mould of what Cairns are looking for in their bigs. We spoke about this with Tanner Groves last episode, looking for bigs that can shoot the three and also finish inside. Well, he's a little bit down on his three-point shooting in NBL 1 right now, but he absolutely can do it. And then, of course, he can roll to the ring and dunk on your head as well. So I love all the tools. He's primed for a bigger role this season, and hopefully he starts to establish that resume that we were talking about.
Yeah, one of the most athletic players in the NBL is a big call, but it's an exciting prospect. And Mitch Norton, who we've seen do his thing the last couple of years. He's playing with the Southern District Spartans at the moment, another team who really embraced the NBL 1 Heritage Round as well and had some great retro uniforms across the course of the last weekend. Been a nice return to form for Mitch.
Yeah, I think I get the feeling that he's reinvigorated now that he's at Brisbane. He knows he has a clear NBL role and he's putting up great numbers right here. We know he's not a score-first guy, but he's coming off the back of 28 and 24-point games. So again, he's looking in really promising form right now.
Well, Mick, that's the world of hoops here on NBL Heat Check. Your analysis is unparalleled. Thanks as always. Look forward to joining you next time.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Michael Houben here on NBL Heat Check. Thanks for your company. Our next episode, we're going to go deep dive into the NBA draft. We'll have Summer League just around the corner as well. So much to come. Thanks for your company. We'll see you next time.